Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today, I'm excited about this one. In deck number 483, we get back to mono red with Torbran, Thane of Redfell. Now, yes, this is Gimli, okay? I don't know. Patron of the show, Jake Williams, he was telling me how this Gimli. But anyway, 4 mana, 2/4 Dwarf Noble. If a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead. Now, the wording there is so specific, and it is what we've been looking for forever. Because it is a red source. Now, that is quite limiting. It doesn't do, it's not a source you control or whatever. It's a red source. So, the downside is, artifacts, colorless things, whatnot. But, deals damage to an opponent. So, it doesn't amp up the damage that you take, like, say, through, equal damage spells. But, it's just your opponent. So, oh my gosh, where do I start? We're going to do something weird, and we're going to start with enchantments, because I think that's what the enchantments are, what we have to have in mind before we look at anything else. First off, obviously, we have to have Torbran in play. That's what we want to do. And we'll get to the other stuff, but right now, let's look at enchantments. First off, Leyline of punishment, just so that the damage cannot be prevented. That's it. That's all we want that for. Now, gratuitous violence is going to double damage from creatures. Okay? From just your creatures. So, we've got some creatures here. So now, if the creature deals damage, it's +2, and then that's doubled. Sweet. Okay, the rest of the enchantments. Circle of Flame. Whenever a creature without flying attacks you or a walker you control, Circle of Flame deals 1 damage, now 3 damage to that creature. Wow. So, just a non-flying attacker hitting you, it's going to take 3. Attack before it even deals its combat damage. Now, Sulfuric Vortex, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, Sulfuric Vortex deals 4 damage to that player. If a player would gain life, that player gains no life instead. Also preventing the life gain. Now, we're only going to take 2. Everybody else is going to take 4. Pyrohemia was the very first card I thought of when I saw Torbran. The absolute first card. Because, oh my gosh. So, it's red color shifted pestilence. Spend a red, Pyrohemia deals 1 damage to each creature and each player, but it's so much better than that. It's 1 damage to you and 1 damage to your creatures, but 3 damage to everything else. So you're getting so many lightning bolts off your 1 mana. Oh, it's so good. But in our last enchantment is Mana Barbs. Now, Mana Barbs does hit everybody, but it's only hitting us for 1. Everybody else is taking 3 damage when they tap a land. And let's face it, because we're running Urza's Armor, we're not even taking the 1. Let's see here. I'm running the Whisper Silk Cloak just because it will protect Torbran. Our singular Planeswalker is Jaya, Venerated Fire Mage, Chandra's. Oh my god, I could pack this deck so full of Chandra's. But if another red source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1. So it's just +1, +2, plus. So let's look at some mana. It's not really mana fixing. It's all mono red, isn't it? So it's ramp, I guess. So we got our Fire Diamond, Golem's Eye, Fountain of Ichor to get that specific red. Heraldic Banner, I'm telling you, just getting that +1 on the front and being able to tap for a red. I'm a big fan of the Heraldic Banner. Dreamstone Hedron's in there. We are playing mono red. There's a few cards that are above the 6, but this also doubles as it's three cards drawn later in the game when you don't need it. Mana Geyser makes for some crazy explosive turns. That's a ton of mana to get a red mana for each tap land your opponents control. And I'm running the Simian Spirit Guide because, well, I like it. It does provide a certain amount of boost if you get it at the right time. But with Torbran, it's not even that really bad if you don't, because it's a 3 mana 2/2 that's going to deal 4. So it's not great. If you get it, you get it. Let's look at some card draw here. Now, there is something here. I'm going to interrupt the card draw in. Faithless Looting. Draw 2, then discard 2. Tormenting Voice. You discard a card and draw 2. Wild Guess. You discard a card and draw 2. Molten Psyche. They're everybody's shuffling and then drawing the same number. Risk Factor. Now, Risk Factor is, I think, Browbeat for Commander. Because the reason why Browbeat doesn't really is a terrible card in our format is because it says an opponent. Anybody can pay the 5. But with Risk Factor, you can actually pick the person who's you feel like is most likely to take the 4, or in this case, 6 damage. So that's a real thing. And, it's got Jumpstart, so you can do it again. Running the Lore Seeker Stone. I feel like a lot of times this is only going to cost, 3, 4, 5 mana to activate. So that's not that bad. But we do have a lot of discard stuff, so I'm running the Bag of Holding. So when you discard, you can potentially get those cards back. It kind of works well with our Forgotten Cave, Smoldering Crater, and Desert of the Firmament as our cycle lands, so that we can get them back. And I guess since we're here in non-basic land, we'll show you the only other non-basic, which is get to Enchantment, because it turns into a red creature. 2/1 first strike that deals 4 damage. That's I'm about that life. What we got next? Creatures. Let's look at some creatures. Goblin Chain Whirler was just right up there on the list. Simply because, when Goblin Chain Whirler enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. What? 3 damage. That is... Oh, that's so good. Varchild. Deals combat damage to a player. That player gets that many survivor tokens. And those survivor tokens can hit you. And she's +2, so she's 3 mana for dealing 5 damage. They're getting 5 survivors. And then their survivors can hit you. But when she dies, you get them all. And yes, they become red sources you control. So now all those 1/1 survivors are dealing 3 damage apiece. Oh, Varchild is just... Kamal. This is too funny. Kamal needs to die on sight, folks. I plan on actually playing this deck tonight, actually, because y'all see this Friday. I want to take this with me to EDH&M. And, man, I hope I draw the Kamal. Because Kamal taps to deal 3 damage. Well, now Kamal taps to deal 5 damage. If we've got Gratuitous Violence out, we're tapping Kamal to 10 somebody. Just tap him to 10 you. Magmatic Force. Yes, it is an 8 mana. 7/7. At the beginning of each upkeep, Magmatic Force now deals 5 damage to each upkeep. That's every single upkeep. You're just slinging around lava axes like there's no tomorrow. one of my personal favorite cards with Torbran is Dracoseth, Maw Flames. 7 mana, 7/7 flying dragon, of course. But when you declare it as an attacker, I'm going to read the new Torbran improved numbers, right? So it's a 7/7 that's going to deal 9. But then when it attacks, it deals 6 damage to a target and 5 damage to 2 other targets. That is 16 plus... let's see, 16 plus 9? One attack is 25 damage with Dracoseth. I mean, it's spread around, yeah, but that's a ton of damage. And let's not think about gratuitous violence, because all that damage is coming from a creature. Oh. So, the Plinkers. The the wizards you tap to do a point of damage. Started with Prodigal Pyromancer here because that was the original color shifted version from Prodigal Sorcerer that's been around way back since, I don't know, forever in Alpha. But there have been many, many takes on that. There have been the Volshock Sorcerer, which is kind of harder to cast. It doesn't really matter in mono red. So, but now these creatures are tapping for 3 damage. They're tapping to bolt things, folks. Gosh, it's crazy. So Thermo Alchemist is only 2 mana. It has Defender. We're probably not attacking anyway. And it taps to deal 3 damage now to each opponent. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get to untap it. This you can go nuclear pretty quick. Cinder Pyromancer is real close to the same. It is target player, but you get to untap it just in any red spell. Our other Plinker is the new Trebuchet, Brimstone Trebuchet. It's a fun word to say. Actually, I built a Trebuchet in the backyard. No, I built that in the front yard. Probably 6-7 years ago. That thing was huge. Yeah. Anyway, 1 damage to each opponent. Well, 3 damage now. The Night Claws we're probably never going to use, obviously. Hellrider. When a creature you control attacks, Hellrider deals 3 damage to defending players. So every time a creature attacks. Fire Servant. If a red instant sorcery spell you control would deal damage, it deals double that damage instead. I mean, we're doubling more than the double. Fanatic of Mogus. Did you notice all the red mana pips? It deals damage to each opponent equal to your devotion to red. Keep in mind this is coming from a creature, so this will get doubled by the gratuitous. Yeah. Embermaw Hellion. 5 mana, 4/5 trample. Okay. If another red source you control will deal damage to a permanent or player, it's going to deal that damage +1. Well, yeah, more pluses, right? Of course, we've got Gutter Snipe for the instants and sorceries. Because, Gutter Snipe wasn't good enough. I'm sure glad they made it where he deals 4 damage every time you cast an instant or sorcery. Lavaborn Muse is the punishing card, 2 or fewer cards in hand, they take now 5. Which, Lavaborn Muse, I may not be that sold on as I find a better card. Maybe one of the Chandras may replace it. Hissing Iguanar. 3 mana, 3/1. Whenever another creature dies, you may have Hissing Iguanar deal 3 damage. Well, of course we're going to. Rampaging Ferocidon. I love it. Players can't gain life. Need as many incidental instances of that as we can get. But whenever another creature enters the battlefield, Rampaging Ferocidon deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. That's what I'm talking about. Let's look at Harsh Mentor. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land on the battlefield, of course it's not a mana ability. Harsh Mentor, they take 4 now. Artifact or creature, you're just 4ing them every time they activate. It's so good. Electrostatic Field from Guilds of Ravnica. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it deals now 3 damage to each opponent. See, that's the beautiful part. Uh, they have started including each opponent. So burn actually is viable in a multiplayer format. And I say burn because this is a burn deck and we all know it. But it's not burn in the traditional sense of I'm only running lightning bolts kind of thing. Akum Hellkite. 6 mana, 4/4 flying dragon. Now, let's read this and then I'll tell you my opinion afterward. Landfall. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Akum Hellkite deals 1 damage, now 3, to target creature or player. If that land is a mountain, the Hellkite deals now 4 damage to that creature or player instead. Now, I realize we've never gone back to Zendikar. We had Zendikar, World Wake, Rise of the Eldrazi, and then Battle for Zendikar. We didn't go back to Zendikar. We went back to Rise of the Eldrazi. So hopefully when we finally go back to Zendikar a year from now, we'll actually get the adventure world that we had for, a set and a half, essentially. But anyway, my thing is, it wouldn't be that difficult for them to call this Mountainfall. Because in battle they had, 1 or 2 per color. Plainsfall, Mountainfall, Forestfall. I mean, as kind of a play off the original Landfall. And that would actually maybe save some space on the card. I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 lines of text here. I'm all for, saving space. Tunneling Geopede. Another Landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, Geopede deals now 3 damage to each opponent. Now, this damage keeps stacking up because it's like every card we do deals damage. And first off, they're creatures. So, in dire straits, we can attack with them, but just existing is damage. Now, the last creature I wanted to show you is Hostility. Mainly because we're about to go into the instance and sorcery section. I say that I've got it separated as damage and then removal. Not always necessarily the same thing, but Hostility. If a spell you control will deal damage to an opponent, prevent the damage, and you get that many 3/1 elementals for each 1 damage done. So. By the way, those elementals are 3/1 red sources of damage, so they'll do 5 damage apiece for each 1 damage that you. Oh my gosh! So let's look at some of those damage spells, shall we? We cannot build a burn deck without lightning bolt. That's just all there is to it. I'm sure glad they found a card to make lightning bolt good because it wasn't quite good enough. Now it deals 5 damage. Gosh, it's so awesome. I'm even running Flare. Yeah, Flare. It's 3 mana for 1 damage. Well, now it's 3 mana for 3 damage. And, you draw a card. That's pretty good. Cone of Flame. Cone of Flame deals 3 damage to target creature or player, 4 damage to another target, and 5 damage to a third target for the low price of 5 mana. That's a ton of damage. Whew. Lightning Strike is. I debated on Lightning Strike or Incinerate, and to be honest with you, I probably should have used Incinerate just for the no regen clause. Because, there are times. A lot of times it's not important, but when it's important, man, it's really important. Chandra's Outrage. 4 mana. Chandra's Outrage deals 6 damage to target creature and 4 damage to that creature's controller. Wow. Yeah, that's some damage right there. Flame Jab, anyone? It's a sorcery lightning bolt with retrace now. This is so. I'm telling you, this deck's going to be a ton of fun. It really is. I feel like this is maybe the answer for that really, really long game, But Rekindle Flame. I love me some Rekindle Flame. It deals now 6 damage to target creature or player, sure. But at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent, any opponent, has no cards in hand, you just get to get it back to your hand. That happens. Well, to be honest with you, it happens more than it should, but it does happen. So now let's look at some removal. Things like Volcanic Fallout, dealing 2 damage to each creature and each player. Of course, it's going to deal 4 damage to all your opponents and their stuff. Whip Flare, dealing 4 damage to each non-artifact creature that your opponent controls and only 2 to yours. Same with Pyroclasm. Now, Pyrokinesis, yeah, that's right. I'm using Pyrokinesis because here's what I want to do. I want to live the dream, yo. Because, yeah, you get your red card instead of paying. This is in the cycle of Force of Will and Bounty of the Hunt and Scars of the Veteran from Alliances. Now, granted, obviously, Force of Will was the all-star of that particular cycle. But so, Pyrokinesis deals 4 damage divided any way you choose among any number of target creatures. So if you take your 4 damage and you split it up 4 ways and deal 1 damage to 4 different targets, they're all taking 3 now. Congratulations, you just got 12 damage out of your Pyrokinesis. Blazing Volley. Now 3 damage to each creature your opponents control. That's really good for 1 mana. Incendiary Command. Man, I'm glad they come up with the bullet points because this was the original printing of the command, and those were here again. I want to introduce y'all to a term that I learned a very long time ago in the early 90s from Magic. We call it 6-line syndrome. At some point, they put so many lines of text on a card, you just kind of gloss over it and you don't even care, or you don't read it or whatever. It's just like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. But you get to pick 2 of the 4 modes here. That's what all of those commands did. 4 damage to target player, so that would become 6. Or 2 damage to each creature, that'd be 4. Destroy target non-basic land, has its value. Or each player discards all the cards in their hand and then draws that many cards. So this is kind of also, if you're getting land flooded, you can just sandbag land and do it that way. Also, that's a discard. Each player discards, so you can discard it in your bag of holding if and you need to. Playing shenanigans, because you know what? Why not? Destroy target artifact. Shatter is not amazing, but a reusable shatter, I'm here for it. Next to last card in Scred. Yeah, I realize that I'm committing a bunch of snow-covered mountains to the deck just because of Scred. I looked for other options for snow and damage and stuff like that, but I feel like that there's going to be a snow world at some point in time. We're going to go to snow done correctly. I feel like it's coming. And yeah, I wasn't that. When I run across Scred, and really Scred don't have to be in the deck because it deals damage equal number of snow pretty much your snow lands. Now it's going to be +2. That's not that big a deal. There may, granted, there's probably going to be instances where that extra 2 does come in handy. But this is such a big deal to me. Torbran is that Torbran. We all seen the snow-covered mountain, but I used the Avon mountain sleeves that I've been waiting for the perfect red deck, and I think Torbran is it. I'm super excited about it. But let's get to our last card. Y'all know what it is. Sure, you know what it is, right? Fireball. Fireball is just the way. And the reason why I chose Fireball over all the rest is because Fireball, you can bounce. Yeah, it's pretty mana intensive, but you can bounce the Fireball. And you bounce, or you just face them. But that is Torbran. As I said, I'm super stoked to be playing this tomorrow. Glad to I don't know because y'all know me. A lot of times I get super excited about a deck and then it just doesn't. As a matter of fact, I think what I'm going to do right now, since I know that I'm about to play this, is I think I'm just going to try to shuffle some of these up to where all those creatures aren't right there together and all those spells aren't. That way, just in case I forget to do it tomorrow, it's there, right? I mean, I've already kind of somewhat, because like last week when me and Danny were playing some of the decks, every single one of them had like all 35 or 36 lands right there together. So, mental note: if you ever borrow one of my decks, look at it before you shuffle it to see how much you in fact need to shuffle. Because there's a good chance that if I haven't played it since I've shown it to y'all here, that it is severely, severely clumped. That'll help a little right there. Torbran on top of there. And that is what I have got for Torbran. Let's see if we can get the wall. Yeah. And that's 483. So we're chugging right along with Eldraine. I have two now. I just finished another one. The next deck is going to be Questing Beast. Questing Beast will be tomorrow. I guess if you're seeing it, well, it may not be tomorrow. Depends on when you watch it. I mean, obviously, watch it 6 months from now. It won't be tomorrow. Anyway, Questing Beast will be the next one. I tried hard to come up with something different than Questing Beast, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. Questing Beast, I did not. I didn't look at EDH Rec at all, so I may have actually missed some things. And I'm playing with some weirdness. I promise you that. And then what is after? Oh, Sir Gwyn, the Night Tribe. I've got the Night Tribe done, so y'all be seeing that soon. Trying to, as long as I can do a deck a day, that's exactly what I'm going to do because I love in the comments. I can't remember. God, I wish I thought for your name because that was such an awesome line. It's Decktober. That's right. It's Decktober. If I want to do a video every day, I'd like to do a deck every day. The Eldraine decks are, I've noticed so far, like Sir Gwyn, the night one, that one was super easy to build because it kind of builds itself. You're just like, oh look, it's knights and equipment. Try to throw a little spiciness in there. Dana Roach style. He made a suggestion a couple weeks ago that I thought was absolute gold, so I'll put that in there. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, I'm rambling again. I do appreciate y'all watching. Y'all let me know what you think. But I think, well, it's late Thursday night right now, so I mean, we just got back from karate, and I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. With that in mind, it is time to shuffle and cut.